Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. So this is .NET 7 Blazor WebAssembly JWT Authentication series. Okay, so this is part 5 video of this series. So in this series we are going to implement the authentication state provider in Blazor application. So previously we are done by getting the access token, right, for valid user. Now we have to read this token and we have to implement the authentication state provider. Okay. To that state provider, we have to pass the clients inside of the token so that our Blazor WebAssembly application can read the authenticated user context. Okay. So first, let's go to our login page. So here in the success response, let's try to read the API response, okay, token response. In view models accounts folder, let's create a new view model. So let's name it like JWT token response VM. So it will have a property like our JWT access token, our API response token, okay. So go to our login.razor page. Here, let's read the response. So where token response equal to await response dot content. So here is the response object. I am trying to read the success content. Okay. So read from JSON async, and here I can specify the type of the response object, that is JWT token response VM. Okay, now we have to store our token into the browser local storage. So that whenever our Blazor WebAssembly requires the token, we can access from the browser local storage. Okay, to interact with the browser local storage, we have to install one NuGet package. Okay, so in the Blazor WebAssembly application, let's go to manage NuGet packages. Okay, and such like Blazor local storage. Okay, this one, install it. Okay, after successfully installing the Blazor local storage, you can check the installation package. So here it is installed. Now go to program.cs file. Okay, here we have to register the service of the uh, Blazor local storage library. Okay, so builder.services.add Blazor local storage. Okay, let's try to import the namespace. Okay, using Blazor local storage namespace. Right, now let's inject local storage service here at the rate inject and I local storage service. Okay, and here is the namespace. So import it. Instead of using here, we can globally configure this namespace under underscore imports file. Okay, and underscore local storage service. Okay, now I want to store my token into the local storage. Okay, browser local storage. So if I go here, okay, await underscore local storage. Okay, set item. Okay, and here I can specify I'm going to set a string type item. Okay, and key. So which key we, so in the browser local storage we have to save like a key value pair. So we have to specify a key. So here I am going to give key like JWT hyphen access hyphen token. Okay, and here value we have to pass. So token response dot access token. Okay. Now let's check whether we are able to store the access token into the browser local storage. Okay. Okay. First, let's check the existing. Okay. Go to application and the local storage. There is no JWT token. Okay. This one key. Here in the key section, you will see and value will be here. So you have to go for the local storage tab under the applications. Okay. Now let's try to log in again with valid credentials. Okay. Now see, we are successfully stored our access token into the browser local storage. Okay. Next. So to make our Blazor WebAssembly authenticated, okay, we have to implement the authentication state provider. Okay, so to implement the authentication state provider, we need to install one authentication library. Okay, so in the Blazor WebAssembly, go to manage NuGet packages. Okay, and search like Microsoft dot ASP net core dot components dot authorization. Okay, this is the package we have to install. Okay, after installing that package, let me implement the authentication state provider. So to implement the authentication state provider means we have to create the custom state provider. So in the shared folder, let me create a folder like provider. So inside of the providers folder, let me create a class for my custom auth provider. Okay, so class, I will name it like custom auth provider. Okay, it must inherit the authentication state provider. Okay, import the namespace. So that comes from Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.Components.Authorization, the package we just installed. Okay, so this is an abstract class. So here we have to implement the abstract class. Okay, so this is the default get authentication state provider method get invoked whenever the our state provider is refreshed. Okay, so here we have to read our JWT token because our token contains claims, right? So we have to read that claims from token and assign it to the authentication state provider object. So to read the token from the browser local storage, we have to do or we have to inject the iLocal storage service. Okay, private read only iLocal storage service. Okay, add the constructor. Okay, and inject the iLocal storage service. Right, so local storage service. Now here let's implement the logic. Okay, where JWT token, okay, underscore local storage dot get item by string, okay, string, and here we have to pass the key. So we are setting some key, right? While storing, same key we have to use for retrieval as well. Okay. If string dot is null or empty means there is no JWT token exist in the browser local storage. That represents user is not yet authenticated. Okay. So it should be awaited. Await. Okay. So whenever it is empty, we will return empty authentication state provider. Okay, authentication state. Okay, and it will take new client's principal object. Okay, and it will take empty new client's identity. Client's identity. Okay, that's it. That empty returning empty authentication state means uh, user is not authenticated. Okay, if token exists, then we have to decrypt the token and read the clients. Okay, okay, for decoding the JWT token, okay, so there is some logic. I am going to copy it from the internet. Okay, so this is the logic I am going to copy. Okay, this one was proposed by Steven Anderson for decoding the JWT token for retrieving the clients. Okay, just copy these two methods. Okay, and add them here. Okay, let's make two methods private. Okay, so let's understand these methods logic what they are implementing. Okay, so if you observe, this is the first method we have to call. Okay, we have to pass our JWT token. Here if you see, it is splitting by dot and getting the second part of the content. Okay, so if you go here, this is my JWT token, right? So let's copy this token once. Okay, and go to jwt.io. Okay, here just paste the content. Okay, let's remove double quotes. Okay, and if you see payload and signature and header. Okay, here it is decoded. Okay, so here if you observe, there is a dot separation in the JWT token. So the first part represents header. Okay, and the second part contains the payload. Okay, see here till to here. It contains totally three parts: header, payload, and signature algorithm. So here splitting by dot and fetching the second item index by 0, right? 0 1, that means payload we are getting. Okay, once we are getting the payload, okay, we are reading the bytes of data from the payload string. Okay, while getting here we have to consider two things. Okay, like it should be a base 64 string or JWT token, right? Encrypted token. So here we have to, when we uh, divides the string length by 4, okay, okay, if it gets remainder 2, then we have to assign 2 equal to, like padding at the end of the payload string. If we get 3, we have to add the 1 equals to. Okay, then we can read the byte array from the base64 string. Okay, this is the default logic. Okay, after getting the base64 string, we are deserializing the bytes into a dictionary of string and object. From there, we are trying to fetch the key value pair of our clients. Okay, that is the actual logic for decrypting the uh, JWT access token to retrieve the clients. Okay, now I will use that. Okay, now here I am going to return authentication state. Okay, equal to new authentication claims principal. Okay, new claims identity. Here I can call the parse from JWT method and pass our JWT token. Okay, comma, here we have to specify name, like any name you can give, but make sure to give some name. Okay, JWT auth something. Okay, why? Because if you don't specify the name, it won't recognize the claims at that time. If you log in also, authentication state provided treat it as a not logged in user. Okay, so make sure to specify the name. So this is my custom authentication state provider. Now let's register this custom authentication state provider in our program.cs file. So builder.services.add scope, okay, and auth state, sorry, authentication state provider, okay, authentication state provider, comma, or custom auth provider. Okay, and we have to enable the uh, authorization services also. Okay, add authorization core service. Since we are using authentication state provider, right? We have to add the cascading state provider component. Okay, so it should be added as a root of all the components. So go to app component. Okay, here what I can do, I'm going to render the cascading, this one, cascading authentication state provider. Okay, to reduce this namespace, cut this and add inside of our underscore imports file. Okay. Okay, now everything must be wrapped into that cascading authentication state provider. So why I am rendering means, so whenever authentication state provider gets the user data, okay, this data, then this cascading authentication state provider can inject the user authentication context into our entire application. Okay, that is why we have to encapsulate cascading authentication state component. Okay, if I am able to make my Blazor web application authenticated, then I want to hide this login and registration links, and I want to display the authentication username in this place. Okay, so for that, what I will do, let's go to main layout. Okay, here I will use some default components. Okay, authorize view. Okay, so this contains uh, two child components. Okay, so these are default components like authorized. Okay, and second thing will be not authorized. Okay, from the name itself we can understand, if the user is authenticated, then the content inside of the authorized element will be rendered. If user is not authenticated, then the content inside of not authorized will be rendered. Okay, so let's cut this, add under mud space. Okay, and now let's move these links into the not authorized content. Okay, Now in the authorized content, let me display the name of the user. Okay, for that I can use span tag, and the authorized view can read the user as context.user. Okay, from this we have to read the user claims to display some name. So for that, let me add a code block here. Okay, and here I am going to create a method, one private method. So private string user display name. Okay, and this method should contains collection of claims as a input. Okay, claim, import the namespace. Okay, so claims. So here I will have a logic like where first name. See here you can see my payload of my JWT token, right? I will have a claims like first name, last name, email, expiration, issuer, and audience, right? So I'm going to use these three properties: first name, last name, and email. Okay. So to read the claims, so claims dot where, okay, type equals to key of our claim. Our claim key of our claim is first name. So if you have any doubt, you can go to our API project. Instead of copying from this JWT IO, you can go to API project and go to the services. And here login implementation, we are adding claims, right? So these claims names you can directly copy from here. Okay. First name, then select the value. Okay. Dot first dot default. Same way, I'm going to fetch the last name. Okay. So copy this logic and change the claim type like last name. Okay. So here what I will do, if string dot is null or empty, first name or not string dot is null or empty, last name. If at least any one of the value exists, then I will return it as a display name. Okay. So first name and last name. Okay. So if both first name and last name also not exist at that time, we can display the email address. Okay. So where email equal to, so copy this line of code here and change the type to email. Okay. Let's cross verify from here, email. Okay. And finally return it, email. Okay. So now here I can call that method at the rate user display name. So context dot user dot claims. Okay. And it is IEnumerable. You have to give two lists. But once we log in, see if I render initially it will be empty. But once I log in, I have to refresh the state. So for that, in the custom state provider, we are going to create one more method. Okay. So that is public method, and I will name it like notify auth state. Okay. And here I can call default method like notify authentication state is changed and just call this method again. Okay. That will update the state of the authentication state provider. Okay. Now in the login method, so in the login method, we have to inject our services also, authentication state service. So inject authentication state provider. Okay. Auth state provider. So here, once user is logged in, I want to refresh the authentication state provider. So authentication state provider. Okay, convert it as custom auth provider because we have a method in the child class, right? So we are converting and import the namespace. Okay, dot notify. Okay, now first let's remove the token from the local storage because I want to relog in. Okay, and reload again. Okay, now if I try to log in, see here, login and registration links are hidden and user name is displaying. Why I am getting double slash? Okay, let's go to our main layout. Okay, okay. Now check again. Now it is gone. Now if you observe, if I reload also state is maintaining because authentication state provider by default when it executes it will check for the local storage, right? So if the token exists in the local storage, it always loads the user information. Okay, so that's all about implementing the custom authentication state provider in our Blazor WebAssembly application. So now we are successfully injecting the authenticated user context into our entire Blazor WebAssembly application. Okay. So in the next video, we are going to create one secured endpoint. Okay. Secured means only authenticated users only can access that endpoint. So to access that endpoint, we always send our JWT token as a header to the API endpoint. Okay. In the next video, we are going to implement that. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this video delivered some useful content to you all. If you like the video, please do support by subscribing to the channel and also please don't forget to share and like the video. Soon we are going to meet with new content. Until then, signing off.